there were 4 Catholic ladies having coffee together. And the first one tells her friends, "My son is a priest, and when he walks into a room, everyone calls him Father." And the second Catholic woman chirps, "My son is a bishop, and whenever he walks into a room, people say, 'Your Grace.'" And the third Catholic woman says smugly, "My son is a cardinal, and whenever he walks into a room, people say, 'Your Eminence.'" And so the fourth Catholic woman sips her coffee in silence. And the first 3 women give her this subtle, "Well?" And she replies, "My son is a gorgeous, hard-body barroom dancer. And when he walks into a room, people say, 'Oh my Lord.'" And that's what I call awareness. He knows who her son is. All right, so we're continuing in this study of living originally. And what does it mean to live originally? Well, according to the author, it means that we're living in conscious awareness of what we are, the truth of what we are, our divinity, our wholeness, our magnificence, our light, our essence, our joy. And in order to do that, a transformation has to take place. Because, unfortunately, we've been conditioned to believe otherwise. And transformation is the way we shift our identity from that inauthentic self, the personality self, to our authentic, divine essence and identity. And when this transformation takes place, some major shifts happen. And the author talks about there's increased sense of freedom and purpose and fearlessness. Our identity shifts from being isolated and separate to feeling connected to others and ourselves. And we have a heightened sensitivity and compassion. Our sense of self becomes strong, and that we're no longer defined by the outer world. Doesn't that sound yummy? Its expectations, its values, but from what we know we are authentically, and we're rooted in that. And when we have that transformation, we surrender the ego's stronghold, and we call forth and allow our unfolding as divine beings. And we make that a priority in our life. And then we wake up to the beauty, wonder, and fullness of living. Now, is that a transformation we're saying yes to, or what? Yeah. We can't keep doing life the way we've been doing it in order to live originally. And the author makes a distinction between transformational and translational teachings. And again, a translational teaching, and I'm going to bring this to unity. What's a translational teaching? A translational teaching is a teaching that gives us comfort, that can improve our lives, but not necessarily transform it. And in unity, we can use an affirmation that way. And the example that came to me was, and then at the 4T class, we can say, "I'm prosperous, I'm prosperous, I'm prosperous, I'm prosperous, I'm prosperous." But it's only translational unless we really feel it and we know it. Because if we are affirming, "I am prosperous," and underneath that, we're saying, "Oh my God, have you seen my finances? I can't pay my bills this month. There's not enough." And a transformational teaching is when everything changes for us. And I will share that in unity, a transformational teaching for me was tithing. Because let me tell you, it confronted every fear I ever had when it came to giving 10% of whatever I brought in to where I'm spiritually fed. It transformed my life. It changed everything for me. Because I had to surrender my fears. I had to trust and know that I know that I know that I was infinite abundance. So this week's focus, we are exploring 2 core practices that are foundational for all else we'll talk about over the next few weeks. And Robert Brummett, the author of the book, just feels like these 2 practices, when we get these, that they're so foundational that we can begin to see ourselves and to say yes more often in the claiming of our divinity, what we truly are. And those 2 practices are radical self-awareness and radical self-acceptance. So, what is self-awareness? Well, self-awareness is, I can look in the mirror and I can see me. I'm aware. But radical self-awareness is when I can look in the mirror and I can see me. I can see the body, Cheryl, but I can also see me viewing the body, Cheryl. Do you see? That I'm aware of myself. When I go, oi, man, I got some gray. Or, oh, my shirt needs to be ironed. You see? So radical self-awareness is when we're not only aware of ourselves and the world, we're aware that we're aware. And we're aware of our thoughts, and we're aware of our feelings. We're aware of our judgments. We're aware. And just in that simple yet very profound practice, we can begin to experience freedom from the shackles of our judgments and our resistance through this simple practice of awareness. And the first step of radical self-awareness is to perceive everything that you can. Your thoughts, your feelings of joy, loneliness, fear, whatever it is. And if you do judge it, to notice that as well. To just notice everything. The whole point is to be aware of our primary experiences and the meaning we give them, and the emotional responses that follow, and to eventually get to a place in our radical self-awareness where we can see our judgments and see any resistance and not resist that resistance. So an example, let me give you a real-life example. So let's say you call your friend Sue, and she doesn't call you back. And you notice you're feeling disappointed, maybe a little upset, asking yourself, why doesn't she call me back? Is she mad at me? You know how we can worry and feel afraid that we've done something to offend. And so this is what I call the spiral effect of going down the tube with no cheese. Because there's no solution to be found there. We just keep spiraling, right? So to use the practice of radical self-awareness, in the midst of that energy, you take a deep breath and you begin to notice the feelings that you're having. Notice the way those feelings feel in your body. And you start to go deeper and notice that underneath that disappointment is some hurt and maybe even some anger. And then these feelings support us in knowing what we have made the situation mean. See? I have done something wrong. Maybe even I'm wrong. I'm not a good enough friend. So if you know those are patterns you are working on, you may go, there it is again. See it for what it is and allow it to go on by. Or maybe it can be a new insight for you. But the important thing is to be aware of your experience in the moment and just see it and allow it to go by. Allow yourself to have it without judging it. And so why is this so transformational? Well, see, our tendency is to see the world as we are instead of as it is. We project our meaning, our discomfort, our thoughts, our feelings to our life experience. So my friend has it called, therefore, I'm not a good friend. Where is the power in that conversation? It's out here, isn't it? On what we have made the experience mean, which more than likely is probably really not true. So one more time, we're operating from a limiting belief that's not the truth about us. And we're on autopilot, reacting. But what's important, if we can, in those moments, is to learn how to bear witness. To be able to just see ourselves in the midst of an upset or whatever's going on. Just to be able to step back far enough in the experience to see it, to become aware of it. And in that moment of awareness, we have the experience versus it having us, you see. And then, in that moment, we can make a conscious choice about how we will respond. And folks, that is so powerful because our life is a series of our choices. And when we can get off autopilot, and I know that one of the places that I go with autopilot, again, and we talked about this in class, is that dang 270 traffic. And I can get on autopilot. And I remember when I was in the Midwest, and the Midwest drivers, lived in the Midwest for 8 years, on their major highway, when it says merge in 2 miles, they start merging immediately. And I remember when I would, I said, I'm going to pull a DC move because I'm really in a hurry. I called it my DC move. And I'd go, and I'd merge in and go, sorry. Yeah, it was an autopilot. It was an autopilot response I'd go to. When if I could just be aware and breathe into the moment, I would go, okay, really, do I really need to do that? Is there enough infinite time? Do I really need... Yay. So, self-awareness, and then deep self-acceptance. So in that moment of zooming ahead of somebody, not really being mindful and loving in my action, the opportunity I would have in that moment is to breathe and to have deep self-acceptance. Because part of radical self-awareness is that we become aware, and that's why sometimes people don't like it, because what happens is that when we sit, when we get still, and we allow ourselves to be radically aware of our thoughts and our feelings, what bubbles up are those things that we've stuffed, you see. And so radical self-acceptance is so important because we can embrace ourselves for all of our judgments, all of our limiting beliefs, all of our limiting thoughts, actions. And in the moment that we accept what is, we release resistance. And folks, resistance is the foundation of our pain and our separateness and our dis-ease. So these two core practices, radical self-awareness and radical self-acceptance, are so important. And so what I invite you to do this week is to take some time in the stillness, in the silence of your being, and just do like the meditation we did today. Start focusing on the breath. And just notice the breath. Notice your physical sensations, because also our bodies are speaking to us a lot. Are we listening? Yeah. And just become aware then of your feelings, any judgmental thoughts, anything that bubbles up. And notice if you're resisting it. And can you be gentle with yourself in that moment through radical self-acceptance? I accept that I'm judging, and it's okay. I'm witnessing it. And notice if the resistance just starts to melt away. And then we can be fully present and available to life in this moment, consciously. Does that sound good? Yeah. All right, so let's practice that this week. Radical self-awareness and radical self-acceptance. Beautiful. So let's affirm the truth together. I practice present moment awareness and gentle awareness of my life experiences and notice the inner peace and joy that unfolds. And so it is. And so it is.